Howdy. Tonight I wanted to do a follow-up discussion on the video from the day before yesterday. If you go back to uploaded videos, it should be close by. But that video is entitled Spiritual Alchemy, How to Transmute and Transform Energy, or something to that effect. So this is like a part 2 of that. So we're going to be talking about spiritual alchemy, transmuting energy and transforming that energy, and what is sacrifice. We touched on sacrifice in that last video, but I wanted to go more into specifically the idea and inner mechanics of the sacrifice itself. So I think that what I'm going to do is read my notes and also talk about them as I'm reading them. I just feel that like even when I'm reading these notes to go back so I can just be like, just talk about them, I'm already like adding things in and talking in circles. So I'm like, I need to be recording this already. It's all slipping away. So forgive me. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be messy, but you know, when is it ever not? Progress, not perfection. Okay, so what is sacrifice? What is the energetic process in sacrifice? What's actually happening? I think that in order to get a good grasp on this, we need to preface it by mentioning again the law of conservation of matter. That is not magic or woo-woo or metaphysical. That is an actual scientific law. I don't think it's Newtonian. I think it's quantum physics or yeah, I think that's right. Physics, like the quantum physics, and not just like the regular Newtonian physics. I don't know if I'm right about that, but I think I am. So the law of conservation of matter states that matter cannot be created or destroyed. And what that means is that when the universe was formed in the Big Bang, all the stuff inside of this physical dimension was, you know, kind of blown up and out at once from a singularity. Everything was smushed into this completely like tiny little dense point, and an explosion happened, and in this physical dimension in our universe, all the stuff that is and ever was is in existence right now. So the stuff that makes up me and my couch and my window and the trees and everything in this physical world, we don't get more of it and we don't get less of it. We can only, like, nature recycles and upcycles itself. So the energy can only change forms and it doesn't go anywhere. It just stays and transmutes and changes and looks for another way to express itself. It looks for a way to be reabsorbed and then reused to keep continually generating life. So, having said that, when we receive through sacrifice, like if we are pulling energy from somewhere, or we want to receive a blessing, or we want to up level, that energy has to come from somewhere. It has to come from something. And if we are, let's say, drawing in light that we haven't earned, then it will result in chaos because we don't have the vessel to contain it yet. So we're taking on more goodness than we can even take. And it's just this pure, like unadulterated, undiluted energy without form. So it's not necessarily that it's like a bad or evil or right or wrong. It's just that there's this excess energy that has no form and no boundary and no vessel and no focused intention, and so it's just out there, right, erratic, creating chaos. It's just this excess, so it needs to be put somewhere. Having said that, if you are drawing energy from nowhere, it's like you're racking up this credit debt that you're going to have to earn through some process, or by like something, maybe you have to let go of something, or you have to overcome yourself, or you have to break something or lose something. So I can feel myself going in circles there. So I want to pause and say, so to describe a sacrifice and what's happening energetically, Think of, so something has to be broken, like some physical or some container or a vessel of energy or of light has to be broken open so that energy can be released and transformed or transmuted and redirected into something else. So it's like cracking an egg to make an omelet. You crack the shell to get the light, the blessing out so that you can create something with it. Or like you break the shell to get the light to create a blessing, right? Or to receive a blessing. So it's like something has to be, like Jesus was literally broken physically, mentally, emotionally, and the intensity of that event and the depth of what was happening was releasing so much energy that it was creating a miracle. It was divine, you know? So think about that in terms of like the sacrifice. On the map of the tree of life, where the governing forces of the universe are sort of all separated out, all of the highest level and purest level of energies are up at the top. And they're so pure that they have to be sort of broken down and filtered and diluted a little bit before we can even make contact with them in our most abstract consciousness. And so as you go up that scale of those governing forces, that is also us ascending in consciousness to be able to like fathom that. Whereas, so in this life, the highest we can get is the level of Tiferet. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I think it's right. But that is the Christ center, the Messiah, where those energies come through and are broken and integrated together so that we can even process them. That energy center is when the map of reality is placed over the human body. It's also the map of the soul. And that energy center is the heart. That's why Jesus lives in the heart. It's the chakra of the heart. That's the information center. That's the portal that Christ consciousness can come through. So that is the highest that we can achieve in this life as far as our consciousness. So when Christ was, you know, he was already in that level of consciousness. He was in such a high vibrational scale, he's off the charts. So that's why it was required that he be at such an intense level of selflessness and understanding, because it would take that amount of energy to make an impression that would last for 2,000 years. The same with like the Renaissance and the masterpieces, that time when people had that level of discipline and focus and devotion and dedication, like even the alchemists who were trying to turn lead into gold, that process, you're working through it and your subconscious is coming forth. You know, we've been talking recently about ways to tap into the subconscious, and a lot of times a physical craft can help you do it, because you're trying to focus in on your craftsmanship, but at the same time, like your subconscious mind is working its way out and latching onto the symbolism of what you're doing, and you're refining and you're grinding down against resistance. So there. Now I'm stuttering. It's all so much, people. It's all so much. All right, so the energy process in sacrifice, what is happening? Law of conservation of matter, the energy is broken open and released. The vessel is broken to release the energy. Receiving through sacrifice. Okay, so we must prepare the vessel to hold and sustain the light. So in this universe, there are it's male and female. Once we get into our human level of understanding, these energies, it's like a positive charge, a negative charge, and a neutral charge. But even more simplified than that, there's light and there's vessel. And so the physical world is this vessel, and it is receiving the light of the creator, of consciousness, of existence. This light is the essence of fulfillment. we reach for things that we think are the fulfillment, like money and, you know, jobs or people or whatever, but really what we want is the light that we are experiencing through interacting with that vessel. The vessel that we create to receive light is different depending on the category, but on a spiritual level, the vessel has to be, so the size of the vessel will depend on our self-worth. And the strength of the vessel to receive the light will depend on our faith and certainty and the ability to stay stable and have self-control and inner strength. Because if we don't have self-worth, then we won't open ourselves up to receiving whatever it is. If it's the job, if it's the person, if it's the relationship, if it's the opportunity, we're going to shy away from it. We're going to be like, oh no, not me, for whatever reason. If our faith isn't strong enough, then the moment that it is tested, we will do something reactively and probably create chaos that may foil the blessing. So we need strength and we need certainty, and we need enough certainty to know that whatever's playing out in the illusion, it's all working out behind the scenes to unfold in our favor and our highest good. And it's basically just this Mario Brothers world avatar presenting us with ways and challenges that we can strengthen ourselves and become stronger and become wiser and more enlightened and more compassionate and sharing. So whatever we're receiving, we can share. So we have to cleanse the vessel of negativity. And there are different ways that we cleanse the vessel. One of them is by the efforts that we are putting into the labors that we are doing of our hands, like whatever we are, like our goals, are the self-work within ourselves, trying to change our heart, trying to become more forgiving and compassionate, trying to become more generous, like the parts of our ego that we're trying to overcome and grow beyond. And so that corrects the vessel. There's also pain. If we experience pain or unfortunate events, or say someone is like running their mouth about you and spreading rumors, all of that is actually good because it cleanses your vessel. It just moves some things around on a balancing scale, and that is a whole nother video to get in, and I can't, I'm like barely hanging on to the reality that I'm grasping to right now. So okay, so light is earned and it creates a blessing. Life that is not earned creates chaos. It's not black and white, good or bad. It's just excessive energy that can't be contained and becomes disorderly. So I think that recently we were talking about the supernal feminine energy. That's up there on that too hot to handle for the human beings. It's above that Christ consciousness. It's called supernal. So supernal female energy, or supernal male energy, is pure, unadulterated like potential. It's just like, rah! It's just like my lamp back there, just blasting light with no form. The supernal feminine is restricting that energy and giving it a vessel to contain it, to give it shape, form, and structure. Okay, so the restriction is required. So it's not that it's evil in the chaos or that you are being punished or whatever. It's just that there's excess energy that has nowhere to be. It has no form, so it needs to go somewhere because it's just messing with things at this point. It's just bouncing off the wall like ricocheting bullets. Okay, so we need to earn the light by our continued growth, our devotion to our spiritual practice, but not just learning, not just entertaining ourselves or soothing or anesthetizing, but actually integrating what we're learning into the way that we live so that we change the way we behave. We're less reactive people. We're more sharing. So if something happens that's a triggering moment, and we reach for instant gratification to soothe that or change the situation or like fix everything so it'll be okay. And we're doing that from a place of, oh, I'm a reactive. I want to control this thing. I want to get this all locked down and under control, you know, and you're like trying to get your agenda. And it's like, maybe you're well intended, but maybe there's a greater, you know, thing playing out that you don't understand. So we want to, you know, surrender to the flow of what's happening. And so we want to stop and pause, and we want to actually use our free will instead of an automatic response or a compulsion, or a need to, you know, get rid of the fear, get rid of the stress, get rid of it, whatever, make it stop. We need to stop and say, okay, what is this showing me and why? Why is this here? Because nothing happens by accident. So what am I learning from this moment? What did I do to contribute to this moment that I'm being shown? Is this a mirror for me to see where I'm lacking or where I, you know, maybe need to, I'm overly compensating or I'm not compensating enough? Like, is this a trigger because I have a judgment, because I have shame, because it's part of my shadow that I've tucked away, that I've hidden, and I don't feel comfortable, you know, to express that part of myself? So we need to examine first, you know, stop, pause, what's going on, why, how am I feeling, what is my initial response here, and why? Is this a pattern? Is this just built-in autopilot navigation, or am I actually using my free will and the wisdom that I've earned and faith and certainty to make a sober, discerning free will choice based on what is good, what I want, what is good for all involved? You know, like you can't even make those decisions if you're on autopilot. You can't consider the well-being of others if you're on autopilot. You can't consider your own needs or desires or your partners or your families if you're on autopilot, because you think you are, but you're only responding based on that scarcity, that fear, that wanting to just get instant gratification. It can be an tempting scenario too if you reach for that instant gratification because you're like, oh, you know, you're tempted. Like it's like when you're starving and you come in from the grocery store and you like eat a bunch before you cook dinner and then you spoil your appetite, right? So we want to practice restriction and make our free will choices. So, okay, spiritual vessel. So our spiritual vessel is created with faith, certainty, self-control, and strength and stability. Our ability to practice self-control and be stable and observe the situation without getting emotionally overwhelmed and involved, while being able to observe our feelings and feel the feelings and acknowledge those, but like we don't make decisions totally based on feeling or totally based on logic. It's an art, you know, and there's also that intuitive level in between the feelings and, you know, the logic that plays a part. So it's a dance, it's an art, you know, it's a practice, it's a discipline. And then the size or the amount of light we can handle is going to be dependent on our self-worth. It's going to be dependent on what we feel we're worthy of, what we can sustain, because otherwise we'll self-sabotage. You know, how many times have you seen somebody else do this? It's so much more obvious when you're watching others self-sabotage or have self-defeating tendencies, but we all have them. So our self-worth, building that will strengthen our ability to sustain a good situation once we have it, because we'll feel more deserving of it. Let's see. Pain cleanses the vessel. What emotional, physical, financial, etc. Oh, emotional pain, physical pain, financial pain, all of those things are they're pains that will cleanse the vessel and transmute energy, and you can turn it around so that fear is like in a positive way. Like take all that financial fear and put it into determination to get your finances organized and to figure out what your budget is for real, what's incoming, what's going out, and then you can make adjustments accordingly. So see, like however charged a situation is, that power is there. And so you might see, oh, this is very chaotic. This is a very scary situation. This situation has a lot of momentum and power in the dark direction. Well, you can actually take all of that power and transmute it and turn it around by turning that situation around for the good, by having faith and praying that the Creator will guide you, will support you in revealing to you what you need to learn about yourself in that moment, or about the situation, or about others. What is the lesson there to receive? Let go and know in certainty that whatever it is, it's not a coincidence, and it's playing out for your favor or for your evolvement. And so you trust and you let go and you wait for guidance, and you use you use all of your best resources that you have, but you pray and you get quiet and you try to get into that place of certainty before you take any action. Don't take action from fear. Don't take action from too much excitement. You don't want to be too this or that. You want to get on that even keel before you execute your move. Okay. Let's see. Correcting your own tikkun creates vessel. And so what tikkun is in Kabbalah, this is the word that we use, I guess, instead of karma, or it's similar to karma, because they'll use that term too. But tikkun is like basically the assignment that each individual person's soul has. Your soul lives through multiple lifetimes, and it's always evolving and it's always expanding, and you have these assignments soul contracts and things that play out in every life. And so part of your tikkun is the parts of your soul that are weaker that you need to strengthen over the course of your lifetime. And so your life is completely designed to trigger your weaknesses and to exacerbate it and make it worse. Basically, like if you're like, why did I have these parents? Why was I born there? It's like because it was supposed to be hard so that you would turn into the certain sort of person. Like you're given these challenges on purpose. They're for you, for your highest good, although it doesn't really feel like it sometimes, and they're not always pleasant, but there's a reason why you have the dynamic with your mother that you have, or your father, or people that come through your life, or the experiences you have with work. It's just the theme of your assignment for this lifetime. It's like we're always in school. And if we don't have any assignments, that means that we don't get to come back and incarnate anymore, and we're reabsorbed into pure consciousness and we have no personality. So none of us are in danger of that because we're all flawed. I'll be seeing y'all out there. I know what you're doing. So don't worry, we're not going to be absorbed into abstract beingness yet. But so that's another reason why you can give yourself a little bit of a break, because we're not supposed to be perfect. This is a process. It's just God discovering God's self through the unique expression of all of these different combinations of himself through people. It's really, really something, so physical vessel so here's a few examples of physical vessels. Like we talked about, the spiritual vessel is having faith. It's doing your spiritual work to correct, the parts of your soul that need correction. And you can get a lot of insight about this in your natal chart. If you get an astrological natal chart reading, it focuses more on your soul's purpose and difficulties and advantages and things like that to use for your own well-being. It's more of a therapy strategy session rather than a fatalistic you'll never be good in this area because you always have this. It's not that at all. Basically, we're given an owner's manual for our life, and it really helps us be oh, okay, so here's a clue. I have problems in this area because it relates back to this. So if I get to the bottom of this and try to do all that healing, then I can make progress where I've been plateauing. See where it's going? So a physical vessel for money, creating the physical vessel for more money would be getting a new job or a promotion or a side hustle, working overtime, starting to invest in things that pay dividends and compound interest, opening extra income opportunities. Those are all building the vessel. You have to have discipline. You have to keep showing up. You have to do something to earn the money. That's an easy way to understand light and vessel. And when you don't earn your money, you tend to not value it, right? And so you spend it like crazy, and it creates chaos for you because you probably are living check to check. You might be in debt. You don't appreciate money, or people around you feel that you don't appreciate what you've been getting. It just creates chaos, right? So you want to have a physical vessel for your money, which is the way that you earn money. It's the effort that you give in exchange for what you are receiving. A physical vessel for an ideal physique is diet, exercise, drinking water, getting good sleep cycles, self-discipline. It might be getting a genetics test. I just had one done through the lab that my sister manages. And they do a test where they look at your DNA and they tell you all about your genetics and like what you need to eat, what kind of sleep you need to get, what kind of exercise, how often to be at your like ideal physical, health and well-being, and like get the most out of your genetics and the most out of your looks. And I have to say, it was a huge insight and tool and resource. But although it's funny because my intuition kind of led me in that, like I was leaning on the side of like following the protocol anyway for myself just by living intuitively. But I mean, not everybody kind of like listens to their intuition about their diet and exercise and stuff. So that might be something to look into, but we're not here to talk about diet and exercise. A vessel for love would be preparing your own soul and heart. It would be learning how to foster and maintain attraction in a sustainable way over the long term. How to integrate desire and commitment, because that's the new phenomenon in human society. Used to, marriage was mostly for the function of it and to have like two people partner up to like take care and like raise a family, but like things are different and marriages aren't arranged anymore or made for economic purposes. So we expect love in our marriage, and that in history it's never been that people were like, I want to fall in love and have that love be my partner and like make that last forever. It was either like they had like these courtly relationships where they would have like romantic love that was never physically realized, and they were in an arranged marriage or whatever, or they grew to love the person in the arranged marriage. So now it's like this new phenomenon. So we need to learn how to foster long-term desire, how to have functional relationships. I know a lot of people like kind of scoff at the idea of having like a relationship coach or a dating coach, but I ask you, how many people that you know that know how to have a functional, like healthy relationship that goes on for several years, decades? Yeah, everybody can have a nice relationship the first year and a half, 2 years, but wait till you get like, antsy, and wait till it just sort of like settles down into like the day-to-day, or you have problems or long-term things that come up. Like you either weather it and you figure out how to become closer and more intimate, or it breaks you apart. So we all need help with coaching. So creating a vessel for love would be prepare your soul and heart, do that work on yourself, do that tikkun healing, do the heart healing, learn about having healthy relationships, learn about being whatever. If you're coming at the relationship with a predominantly masculine energy or a feminine energy, learn how to be the best self you can in that arena, because what you need is contrast in the relationship. You need a polar electrical currents of positive and negative, positive being masculine, negative being feminine. It doesn't matter if it's two women, two men, or maybe even two people that don't associate either way. Your energy dynamic of masculine and feminine isn't really gender specific. And in fact, any two people can be exchanging those roles. It's just that we need to be able to realize the dance that we're doing, and when the other person is in their masculine and you're coming at it and you're masculine, then that's where you're going to butt heads, because you're both being really alpha. If one of the people is being very passive and feminine and waiting to receive or waiting to be led, then maybe that is where someone who's mostly the feminine and the masculine is being feminine, maybe the feminine needs to take the lead for a second. Like, but don't get too out of balance, because then if you're like, say, a feminine woman and you're with a masculine man, but you go through a phase where you start emasculating the man, like unwittingly, unbeknownst to you, like the attraction's gonna die. Or vice versa. If the man is making the woman be too much of the masculine, she's like, I don't feel like a queen anymore. I feel like I don't know, just like the boss at work or something, you know. So everybody wants to feel sexy and like keep that energy going. So we're like, this is not on topic for sacrifice. This is more about relationship, but learning how to have those dynamics and to keep them. Parent healing is preparing a vessel and creating a vessel for love. Getting out there and meeting people. If you're not meeting anybody, then it doesn't matter how prepared you are. I mean, yeah, like the UPS man could come up to the door and that could be your ticket, but there's got to be a lot more UPS man out there. Because I know we all like staying home and eating ice cream and watching Netflix. So you got to get out there and open your heart. Because if your heart is shut down, then you can't shut it down to only like love and romance. It will shut down to everything. Your whole life will start shrinking and getting smaller. So we need to keep the heart open. So with sacrifice, it's all about the quality and the effort that you make. So it's about, I'm going to read the notes here. It's about the effort that you make and going against your automatic reflex to react to a situation in a way to get instant gratification instead of pausing and taking time to discern a free will choice that is not motivated by fear or patterns. A choice to share or to make an effort to change, heal, or grow. Nothing is free. Everything requires an energetic exchange or payment. So remember that from before. It's like if you're going around taking and taking and taking from life and not giving back, you're building up a debt for yourself that you're going to pay for somehow. So whether or not you are talking about this from a position of karma or spirituality or magic or just day-to-day mundane, and you're totally secular, if you are taking from life constantly and not giving back and not using what you take to shine brighter in a way that you can share and like your cup overfloweth onto others, then it will create chaos for you. Like if you're learning about spirituality all the time, but you're not using it to integrate into yourself to make you a better person so that you can have better relationships with others. So you're not sharing what you're learning with others. Like, and you don't want to preach and like barf all over people. You don't want to force yourself on people, but like if they're interested, you're just putting it out there, right? So you can't hoard all the information because that'll cause chaos for you too. That's when you'll start having like random challenges and stuff that are like pushing you in the direction of the things that you learned. Like whatever you're learning, you're gonna have to pass a test, right? You're gonna be tested. So if you are like, oh, I want to be spiritual, well, it's a roller coaster. It's an exciting life because it's not like, easy breezy all the time. It doesn't mean that your life gets better and you never have problems again. You're tested quite a lot, but you just become like this like stone cold, like, no, I'm just kidding. Not a stone cold, but like, I mean, you get ice in your veins and you get stronger, you get more certain because you see all these like things playing out and you're like walking on the edge and you're just seeing like, oh my gosh, like huge things happening. And I don't know, it's just a different experience. You live a more miraculous life. You see, miracles and magic and like God living and breathing and radiating from everything. So it's totally worth it. I would rather be tested and live a vivid and incredible existence rather than just go through a day-to-day monotony that's comfortable and never scary. We're still here. We've lived to tell the tale, so keep on showing up. So about the effort you make, nothing is free. Energy has to be taken somewhere and transmuted and channeled into something else. So here was a note. So the reason why, like when we make sacrifices, we need to pick out the finest specimen. And it's not just because, like, we give God the best. I mean, of course, you don't want to be like, you know, cheaping out, getting those Chinette platters when God's coming to dinner. We bust out the real china, the porcelain plates, right? So what's really happening, though, not just in the obvious, like, don't cheap out God, is that, and you're not wanting to, so like you pick the finest cow for slaughter. In the Old Testament, when they were going to give a sacrifice, they would pick out the finest specimen that they had. And yeah, you know, you give the best to God, and you don't give the scrawny cow that's not going to feed anybody anyway. Like, oh, this is going to be a waste, we'll give this. That doesn't really cost you that much. Remember earlier we were saying, like, what takes the most effort, what costs the most, what means the most to you, or what's the most difficult for you, right? But also the fact that in this pristine specimen of this animal, there is a higher quality of energy than, say, in the runt or the one that wasn't thriving. Okay, so when you bust open that cow, a different level of exquisite, more elevated energy is coming out of it that you can transmute. It's going to be a more powerful energy. That's why Jesus was so powerful when he was crucified as a martyr, as an enemy of the state, as an activist, as a social activist. You know, he was, you know, being executed, but he was also being sacrificed. There were almost like there were multiple storylines going on at that moment, but from a purely metaphysical perspective, Jesus was the most perfect human that had ever lived because he had achieved Christ level consciousness, which is the highest level of consciousness that human beings are capable of while we are embodied in the flesh. So he was the most pristine sacrifice, and that's why, you know, his activism, his sacrifice lived on for thousands of years. But also in a spiritual sense, it helps, that energy is powerful, and it can help us fight spiritual battles. It can help us fight darkness. It can help us heal through the heart. It can help us connect to different portals of time and space and dimension. It's amazing. It's, you know, that's why when demons are exorcised or whatever, priests, you know, they're like, whoa, like the holy water and the crucifixion and the Christ, it's always so powerful. It's such a powerful way to get rid of them because it's the highest power there is. It's the purest, cleanest, most potent. Because not just because that Christ came with this divine energy by itself, but because Christ came with divine energy, was placed in the limitation of human beingness, with flaws, with pain, with fear, with ego. There is challenge to being human. That's why we're above even the angels, because the angels don't have all of that struggle. They just are the way they are. In fact, the one time that there were angels created that were like, okay, well, here, find angels if you think you can do it better. You can go to earth and see how you do. And they like fell immediately, and they failed, you know, failed the test, failed. So when Christ was able to come here and be in this limited human experience with all of these exacerbating people, I mean, he was like pretty salty a lot of the time too. I don't know if you've read in between the lines, but Jesus could get a bit sassy with people. He was a little like impatient sometimes. Just as impatient as Jesus could get. But there was those times where he was trying to tell the priests, like, when you were born again, you know, blah, blah, blah. He was trying to talk about being born and renewed. And they were like, how can a man be born again when he's already been born? And he was like, oh my God, like, is this who's in charge? Like, who's flying the plane? Like, these are the priests? Like, you know, so he was always frustrated with people just like not getting him, and like they're completely missing the point. And he felt like people were really slow and they weren't catching on. So yeah, so him having to overcome like his like all these extra motherfuckers, like all these people getting on his damn nerves, like that made his sacrifice, his level of achievement of that consciousness even more and more powerful, the most powerful of all, because he was able to come here, overcome the darkness and weakness of being a human being and still achieve, still choose, still use his free will to choose the light and to be a pure vessel for the light. So we've learned in other videos that whenever you overcome that darkness, whenever someone overcomes a challenge that's harder for them, like if they were, like, say, a heroin addict or something, when you overcome that addiction, it creates even more light and positivity in the world than had they never been addicted to heroin in the first place, ironically enough. Like, me not being a heroin addict, I'm not really like overcoming anything or sacrificing, breaking an energy down to release a light. But like, this person had to overcome that challenge and get sober. And so that released so much light because they had to overcome so much darkness. But it doesn't count if we start going out looking for darkness so that we can overcome it. It has to be what's on our plate. It has to be what has been assigned to us, right? We can't go doing it on purpose. So don't be going out there creating chaos going, I'm revealing even more light, giving people challenges to overcome. So yeah, so the finest cow will release a more potent, powerful energy. Same for your sacrifice. What's the harder thing for you to overcome about yourself? Are you an impatient person? Do you have anger issues? Are you afraid? Are you like crazy fearful around money? Are you too, opulent and like spend too freely and you need to be more restricted with money? We choose the most value to give. What is the hardest for us to change or overcome about ourselves? It's worth a lot when it's the hardest. When we don't feel like it. So it's when we make an effort to do, like, say, a spiritual practice before bed, we actually get the most out of it the more tired we are and the more that we don't feel like doing it. Those are the ones that count the most. Like when it's like, I can't wait to like do my meditation. That's all right. It's good, but it's not nearly as good. And it doesn't give you nearly as much power and light as when you're like, oh, I don't feel like doing this, but I know I need to. It's the same. The other night when I did this, the part one of this video, I was so tired. I was so tempted to be like, you know what? It won't make a difference if I have like one less video of it. And I was like, no, I can't. Like, this is when it's going to count the most. This is when someone's going to want to see it. It doesn't matter if it's just one view. And also I don't want to break my streak. And sure enough, I posted the video. It was late. I didn't think anybody was going to see it. And overnight, in the morning, I woke up to a comment and somebody was like, oh my God, like, this is so meant to be. I was just like searching for this topic and your video came up and it was like brand new. And I was like, oh my God, like, see, there you go. So you never know. When it's the hardest, that's when it counts the most. When you don't feel like it, that's when it counts the most. These are the times that the more power can be revealed, more light can be revealed. Something can turn around to a better situation. This is what is happening. So in Catholic Church, when they're like lighting a candle and saying a prayer, it's a sacrifice. You're burning a candle away. Someone had to pay for that candle. There is physical matter being broken down and the energy from that physical matter is being released. Even though it's just a little candle, there's intention in that candle and the energy from that matter is being released, and it can be magnified with the intention, of that prayer. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical item. Like, have you ever bought, this is another physical example, but have you ever bought a crystal, been working with it, and then you drop it and it busts? That's a sacrifice. One time when Tori and I were together, we were rushing him to the airport and he was running so late and he had really underestimated how early he needed to get there. And then there was something else involved where we had to like turn around and go back and we lost some time. And he was like, there's no way I'm going to make it. And I was like, you are going to make it. We are going to manifest. You are making it to the airport on time. You will get on your flight. And then immediately we ran over a rabbit. We were like, oh, and I was like, I hate to say it, but that might have been your ticket to the airport, getting to the airport on time. And somehow time was stretched something was delayed, and there was like some easy thing where like there wasn't like he was able to like go into another line, so he got there with plenty of time to spare, and there was like no way it would have ever happened. So don't go slaughtering animals. You don't have to. You can burn a candle. You can actually, the most effective thing to do is change your own heart, to offer someone forgiveness, to be spiritually generous, generous of spirit to someone else, to share, to pay a tithe, to go above the 10% if you can. But yeah, sharing with others and overcoming what's hard for you. This is an important point. If you're really rich and giving money is really easy for you, then that's good. You're still sharing, but it's not as powerful as if you did whatever it is that's harder for you. If it's spending time with someone or making a physical effort with helping them with a task or something like that. So just remember that if it's something that puts you out of your comfort zone and you don't like doing as much, or you don't feel, as comfortable doing as something else, or you just don't like it as much, or you're reluctant or avoidant of it, that's probably the thing that's going to make the biggest difference. All right. It's so much. It's just so much. I'm going to go back over this and be like, oh, I didn't even cover 20 of the different points I was going to make. So it's like you've got to make a movie or a video every day, because there's always something left to say that you forgot to say yesterday. It's a big universe, and we're trying to think about all of it. So, oh, good night.